So we have actually on 7-10 dividing polynomials, we have actually done the types of problems on the first page when I taught you how to divide with exponents. So this first side is just a review, and what we review on this side, we will actually be using for the long division portion of polynomials. So this is 8x cubed plus 12x squared plus 4x divided by 4x. All we're going to do is we're going to take this 4x, okay, and we are going to divide every term by 4x. Okay, that's what we're doing. So each term you treat separately. I have 8 divided by 4 simplifies to 2. X cubed divided by x simplifies to x squared. Now, if you don't know how I got that, let me know and I'll explain it to you. 12 divided by 4 simplifies to 3. X squared divided by x simplifies to x. 4 divided by 4 is 1, and x divided by x is also 1, but we just cancel out the variables. So now I take what I've simplified, and I write my final answer as 2x squared plus 3x plus 1. And that is my final answer. Okay? Yes.
Every time we have a factor or a part of the equation, whenever it's like 4x divided by 4x, it's always a 1.
Yeah.
Like 2x, you always keep that 1 on there.
Right. And that's a good question, because a lot of times people just eliminate the whole thing, but you can't. Divide by 4 is 1. Okay. All right, let's go to example 2. We're going to take 15x and -6 and divide it by 3x. And reduce it. Okay, so 15 divided by 3 is 5. X divided by x cancels out. Now, when we get to this one, 6 divided by 3 is 2, but we have nothing to reduce the x by, so that just stays in the denominator. So the answer to this one would be 5 minus 2 over x. And that's your final answer. Go ahead. How about you guys do 3 and 4 on your own? Okay, I'll pause the video while you do that. Okay, go ahead and check example 3 and 4, and you will notice that I wrote my answer and then rearranged it in descending order by degree. Okay. So are there any questions on how to do this? Did I make a mistake? Oh, wait a minute. 48 divided by 4 is not 6. It's 12. It's 12. Every time I look up and I see somebody crinkle their face, I know I made a mistake. Okay, everything else good? Okay, so for those of you watching the video, we're just doing the example problems together. I have extra practice over here just in case anyone needs it, but we will not be doing the practice in class. If you need extra help and you want to make sure you're understanding it, you can do the practice and then I could check it in help class. And that goes for all of you as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on to page 2. Great, page 2. Let me show you something really quick. I'm going to put a problem up here. Remind you of something. I'm going to take 58764 and divide it by 23. Okay. And Hopefully you remember this from third grade when you first started learning long division, that there is a process to long division. You divide, you multiply, you subtract, and then you bring down. That is what we will be doing with long division of polynomials. So let me just refresh your memory. Let's start with dividing. We're going to divide 23 into 58. How many times is 23 going to 58? Twice. The next thing we are going to do is we are going to multiply. 2 times 23 is 46. The next thing that we are going to do is subtract. 58 minus 46 is 12. And then the last thing that we are going to do is we are going to bring down. And then guess what? We're going to start all over again. 23 goes into 100. We're going to divide. 127 5 times. Now we're going to multiply. 25 times 23 is 115. Now we're going to subtract. 127 minus 115 is 12. And now we're going to bring down. And we have 126 and we start all over. Okay, just watch the pattern though. When you do the pattern, you get used to it. We're going to divide 23 into 126 5 times. 5 times 23 is 115. We're going to subtract and we get 11. And now we are going to bring down and we get 114. We are going to divide again. 23 goes into 114 4 times. You get 92. Let's see, 1, 2, 8, 9. And, oh, that should be green for subtraction. Now we are going to subtract and we get 9, 10, 22. Now we're finished, right? So we've done our long division, but we have a remainder. It didn't divide in easily. So we're going to take 22 over our divisor of 23. And this right here is our final answer. We are going to be doing that, but with letters. Okay, so thank you. So what we're going to do first is we are going to write our problem out as a long division problem. So I'm going to do x plus 2, and we're going to divide that into x squared plus 5x plus 6. Okay. So remember, the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to divide. Okay, we're going to divide. Now, when we divide with polynomials, we're trying to figure out how many times does x go into x squared. Don't worry about the positive 2 yet. How many times can x go into x squared? Do you know that off the top of your head? What do you think? 2. Okay. This is how you would do it. You would take x squared divided by x. Because look, say I were to divide 24 divided by 6, right? Let's say 246. And we were to take 6 and figure out how many times it goes into 24. Well, it's 24 divided by 6, which is 4. So we write a 4 up there. So we're taking this portion of the dividend and we're dividing it by the divisor. When we do this, we're taking the first term in the dividend and we're dividing it by the first term in the divisor. So x squared divided by x, and we just did this on the other side. When you simplify your x's, you get x to the first power or just x. Okay, so x goes into x squared 1x times or just x times. Now, The reason I'm putting it above the 5x is because I'm putting it above its like term. Okay. So now, after we divide, what do? We multiply. Okay, we're going to multiply. And we're going to take x and we are going to multiply it by x plus 2. So we take our x over here and we multiply it by x plus 2 here. Now you do not have to write this work on the side. When we multiply, I'm just distributing my x and I get x squared plus 2x. Okay? So I've divided and I've multiplied. Now, before I continue, I know that this looks confusing, but I want you to hang in there. I want you to wait until we do it. We do 4 or 5 of these problems. And then if you're still struggling, we need to go back and figure out a different way to explain it, because after you practice it, you're going to get the pattern. It's just like when you first started dividing. It wasn't always easy. Okay, so now the next thing we are going to do is we are going to subtract. So I'm going to take these two and I'm going to subtract them. Now, this can get a little bit tricky. Okay. Do you remember when we were subtracting polynomials and it looked something like 2x squared plus 7x minus 5 minus 3x squared minus 2x plus 4. Do you guys remember what you had to do with this negative? You had to distribute it here. And what actually was happening is that you were changing each sign on the inside and making it addition. It's basically what you were doing. You guys remember that? Okay. That is what you're doing here, except we've stacked it instead of written it out horizontally. We're taking this negative, okay, and we are distributing it to each term. And that means that we're changing all of the signs, okay, so that we can subtract it correctly. So we have x squared minus x squared is 0. 5x minus 2x is 3x. And we just subtracted. Our last step is to bring down. So we're going to bring down the 6. That is the first major step that comprised of 4 steps. So that was like step 1, A, B, C, D. Yeah, we haven't divided into the 6 yet. But before I go on, I want you to process. So I want you to look at it, make sure you understand it. If you have any questions before I go on, I want to answer this first. Yes.
So
I like this. You like to process out loud. Go ahead. Process for us.
So we're taking the x first and then only doing the first term to have that you multiply it times the term you're dividing it by. And then this is a lot.
It is. So remember I said we're gonna do 4 or 5 of them and then you'll get the pattern. Okay. Becca.
You know how there's symbol in front of the negative, and then
yeah, so let me show you what we had here. What we had was we had a negative x squared plus 2x, and above it we had x squared plus 5x. And if I were you, just look up here and let me show you why I'm changing the signs. And I'm only changing it to make it easier visually for me. You don't have to. So this is x squared minus x squared, right? Which is 0. Then we have 5x minus 2x, which is 3x. But what happens is a lot of times we forget this negative out here and we say 5x plus 2x is 7x. You're going to end up with the whole second half of your problem wrong. However, if you're able to remember the subtraction out here without changing everything, that's fine. Otherwise, you distribute your negative, and this becomes a positive, this becomes a negative, that becomes a negative. Okay. Did that make sense? Did I answer it? Okay. Oh, that's past that. Okay. All right. Now let's do the second half. This is fun stuff. All right. Now we're going to remember in the division, once we got down to the 12 and we brought down the 7, we then divided 23 into this down here. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to take this x again, this x, and we're going to divide it into the 3x. So x times what gives you a 3x? Well, what you can do is you can take 3x divided by x and it will tell you. You just reduce it, yep, and it equals 3. So since x goes into 3x 3 times, I put my 3 up here. And now I'm going to multiply 3 times x plus 2 here. I could do it off to the side and distribute my 3, or I could just say, okay, 3 times x is 3x, and 3 times 2 is 6. Now let me give you a little bit of a hint. Your goal when you're multiplying here or figuring out what to divide is to get the exact same number above it because you want to zero it out. If you end up with a different number, then this term up here is not correct. The part of your quotient isn't correct. Okay. Now I'm going to subtract. That's my next. I'm going to subtract. I'm going to put my parentheses around here. And I'm going to distribute that negative. So I change this to positive, this to negative, this to negative. And when I subtract, I get 0 and 0. So in this case, I do not have a remainder. And my answer is x plus 3. That is my final answer. There's just a lot of steps, but the more we do these, the faster we're going to go. Okay. Now, I do want to do practice 5. We're probably going to do the first 4 and then just do the examples. But I want you, actually, no, let's go to, no, I want to do practice 5. Sorry. I want to make sure you guys understand this. So let's go ahead and set this up. Okay. We have x plus 4. And we're going to divide that into x squared plus 10x plus 6. So our first step is to divide. So we're going to take x and figure out how many times it goes into 1x squared. And we did that up here already. So how many times is it? Just x. Now, if that's confusing, just take x squared divided by x. And you get x. Now you're going to take this and you're going to multiply it by x plus 4. So x times x is x squared. Now, I know I did it right because these two are the same. And when I subtract them, it'll cancel out to 0. And then x times 4 is plus 4x. And now you need to subtract and distribute that negative. Okay. So we're going to subtract. I'm going to distribute my negative. And I end up with 6x. And then my last step is bring down my 6 and do it again. You have a question? All right, let's do it again. How many times will x go into 6x? Well, if you didn't know, you just divide it. Your x's cancel out and you get 6. My goodness. Now I am going to multiply. That's my next step. 6 times x plus 4. And I get 6x plus 24. Now I'm going to subtract and distribute my negative. I didn't realize I had one with a remainder right here. And then 6 minus 24 is a negative 18. Yeah, I'm going to show you. You're going to add it as a remainder, but in polynomials, you write it like this. You have a negative 18 as your answer, right? So you're going to write minus, because it's a negative, 18 over your divisor, x plus 4. Okay. So the final answer is x plus 6 minus 18 over x plus 4. What do you think? Yeah. Okay, I'll give you a second. While some of you are finishing up, the difference between the example and practice 6 is we're adding a coefficient in front of the x and our divisor. That's the only difference. And then you get down here and a lot of these are just repeats, just practices, okay? So we'll probably just do the examples from this point on. Okay, let's do example 2. I'm going to set this up. Okay. Again, we have a little bit of a difference in that you have a coefficient here and you need to figure out how many times, not just x, but 2x can go into 2x squared. And again, you could divide those two. You could take 2x squared and divide it by x, 2x, to figure that out. And when you do, your 2's cancel out to a 1, your x's cancel out to an x, so it's just 1x or x, okay? Boys, are you good? Is she too tall for you? Do you need to scoot up?
Everybody else is.
Oh, okay. So above my 13x, I'm going to put an x. And now everything else is the same as what we were just doing. We are now going to multiply. So x times 2x is 2x squared, and I did it right because I have the same term right here. And x times 3 is a positive 3x. So now we're going to subtract, and I'm going to distribute the negative. And bring down my 15. All right, now we're going to divide 2x into 10x. So I'm going to take 10x and I'm going to divide it by 2x. 10 divided by 2 is 5. My x's cancel out, so it's 5. put it above my like term in my trinomial here. And now I'm going to multiply. 5 times 2x is 10x. 5 times 3 is 15. Now I'm going to subtract and distribute my negative just to make sure. And my remainder is 0. So my final answer here is x plus 5. Okay. Let's have you go ahead and do example 7, right? I want you to try. You're going to set it up and do the first step on your own, and then I'm going to show you that first step so you can check it. And then we'll pause. I'll have you do the second step, and then we'll check it. So I'm going to pause the video to do the first half of this problem, then we'll come back and check it. Okay, so here is, oops, I did the whole thing. Whoops. All right, go ahead and check it. Good. Okay. So I want you to go ahead and check example 7. If you have any questions, let me know. And then I want you to move on to example 8 on your own. So I'm going to pause the video and come back, and I will be showing example 8 on the screen. Okay, here is example 8. And again, we're not going to do practice 6, 7, or 8 together, but if you need extra practice and you want to come to help class, we can definitely do those together. Questions, comments, concerns? All right. We are going to go ahead and move on to page 3. So what I want you to do, as somebody already said, yes, these are similar, but these are going to have remainders. So I think they have remainders. So I want you to do examples 9 and 10 with your partner, and then I'll unpause the video and we'll come back and check them. And then if you want to, we're going to do both example 11 and practice. It should say practice 11. But anyway, we're going to do both of those at the bottom as well. Okay. So go ahead and do example 9 and 10. We'll come back and check in a few. That's not yet. Okay. So these are two examples that have remainders. Right? Any questions? Okay, let's go to example 11. It says a rectangle has an area of 10x squared plus 23x plus 12. If the length of the rectangle is 5x plus 4, what is the width? So remember, the area of a rectangle is length times width. So if you plug in what you know, it says that the area is this and the length is this. So let's plug in what we know. We have 10x squared plus 23x plus 12 equals 5x plus 4 times w. What are we going to do here? We're going to divide. We are going to take and divide both sides by 5x plus 4. This cancels out, and now we need to solve this. And when you solve this, you set it up just like we did up here. We take 5x plus 4, and we're going to divide it into 10x squared plus 23x plus 12. Okay. So we'll go ahead and do that. 5x goes into 10x squared, 2x times. Then we multiply, and we get 10x squared plus 8x. Then we subtract, and we distribute our negative. And we get 15x, then we bring down our 12. Then we do that again. 5x goes into 15x 3 times. 3 times 5x is 15x. And 3 times 4 is 12. When we subtract, they cancel each other out. So our answer here would be 2x plus 3. And then if you wanted to write units, you could. It didn't give you the units, so you don't have to. Okay?
But the units way.
No, because it's asking for a side length. Okay. I think we're good on practice 12. It's just like this one. It's just different numbers. So it was just an additional practice. So we're going to be done with lesson 7-10. But again, if you're struggling with this and you want to come to help class to do some of the practice problems, or if you want to do a couple before class ends today, we can go ahead and go over that. But that concludes lesson 7-10, dividing polynomials.